Babbage befriended Ada Byron, the daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron. Ada would later become the Countess Lady Lovelace by marriage. Though she was only 19, she was fascinated by Babbage's ideas, and through letters and meetings with Babbage, she learned enough about the design of the analytic engine to begin fashioning programs for the still unbuilt machine. While Babbage refused to publish his knowledge for another 30 years, Ada wrote a series of notes wherein she detailed sequences of instructions she had prepared for the analytic engine. The analytic engine remained unbuilt. The British government refused to get involved with this one, but Ada earned her spot in the history as the first computer programmer. Ada invented the subroutine and was the first to recognize the importance of looping. Babbage himself went on to invent the modern postal system, cow catchers on trains, and the ophthalmoscope, which is still used today to treat the eye. The next breakthrough occurred in America. The US Constitution states that a census should be taken of all US citizens every 10 years in order to determine the representation of the states in the Congress. While the very first census of 1790 had only required 9 months, by 1880 the US population had grown so much that the count for the 1880 census took 7.5 years. Automation was clearly needed for the next census. The Census Bureau offered a prize for an inventor to help with the 1890 census, and this prize was won by Herman Hollerith, who proposed and then successfully adopted Jacquard's punched cards for the purpose of computation. Hollerith's invention, known as the Hollerith desk, consisted of a card reader which sensed the holes in the cards, a gear-driven mechanism which could count using Pascal's mechanism, which we still see in cars' odometers, and a large wall of dial indicators. A car speedometer is a dial indicator to display the results of the count. Hollerith's desk came to great use during US Census. Here is a photograph of Hollerith's desk and the sketch of a person working on the desk.
In the top left picture, it is shown how cards are being punched for US Census. Lower right picture shows Hollerith desks at a museum.
The patterns on Jacquard's cards were determined when a tapestry was designed and then were not changed. Today we could call this a read-only form of information storage. Hollerith had the insight to convert punched cards to what is today called a read-write technology. While riding a train, he observed that the conductor didn't merely punch each ticket, but rather punched a particular pattern of holes whose position indicated the approximate height, weight, eye color, etc. of the ticket owner. This was done to keep anyone else from picking up a discarded ticket and claiming it was his own. Train ticket did not lose all its value when it was punched because the same ticket was used for each leg of a trip. Hollerith realized how useful it would be to punch new cards based upon an analysis reading of some set of cards. Complicated analysis too involved to be accomplished during a single pass through the cards could be accomplished via multiple passes through the cards using newly printed cards to remember the intermediate results. Unknown to Hollerith, Babbage had proposed this long before. Hollerith's technique was successful and the 1890 census was completed in only 3 years at a saving of $5 million. Interesting aside, the reason that a person who removes inappropriate content from a book or movie is called a censor, as is a person who conducts census, is that in a Roman society the public official called the censor had both of these jobs. Hollerith built a company, the Tabulating Machine Company, which after a few buyouts eventually became International Business Machines, known today as IBM. IBM grew rapidly and punch cards became ubiquitous. Your gas bill would arrive each month with a punched card you had to return with your payment. This punched card recorded the particulars of your account, your name, address, gas usage, etc. I imagine there were some hackers in these days who would alter their punched cards to change their bill. As another example, when you enter a tollway, a highway that collects a fee from each driver, you were given a punched card that recorded where you started, and then when you exit from the tollway, your fee was computed based upon the miles you drove. When you voted in an election, the ballot you were handed was a punched card. The little pieces of paper that are punched out of the card are called chard and were thrown as confetti at weddings. Until recently, all social security and other checks issued by the federal government were actually punch cards. The checkout slip inside a library book was also a punch card. Written on all these cards was a phrase as common as close cover before striking. Do not fold, spindle or mutilate. A spindle was an upright spike on the desk of an accounting clerk. As he completed processing each receipt, he would impale it on the spike. When the spindle was full, he would run a piece of string through the holes, tie up the bundle and ship it off to the archives. You occasionally still see spindles at restaurant cash registers.